Welcome back to Tech Leaders Talk, where experts and leaders in the wide world of IT discuss the industry and hard-earned career wisdom with your host, Barry Newkirk. Today's guest is David Jayaramen. David is an implementation and delivery manager at Norfolk Southern Corporation. Born in a small town in India and a graduate of Anna University in Chennai, India, David now lives in Augusta, Georgia. David has over 25 years of IT and project implementation experience. He has worked on large-scale projects that include the state of Pennsylvania, the state of South Carolina, the USDA, and the Department of Defense. Let's get right into this episode with David Jayaramen.
David Jayaramen, welcome to Tech Leaders Talk.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for inviting me, Barry.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're excited about the conversation. Let's just jump into your early life. I want to hear about you growing up, your upbringing, up through your formal schooling in college, university. Can you just kind of paint that picture for us, David?
Absolutely, Barry. There was a boy in a country where he always dreamed when he was lying down on the floor for sleep and looking at the sky in the nighttime. There's a small flight that with a blinking light, and this boy was around probably like 8-10 years old. And he always tell the family that one day I will be flying in that type of flights like crazy. And this boy family always laugh at him, right? Because the childhood of this boy was like very, very, very lower background. That boy didn't even have technology there, no TV whatsoever. But this boy always tells them that, no, you will see me one day flying and working with those English-speaking people. That's what I always tell them. And I have no idea why I always says that, but I always quote that. Fast forward, that boy came into his dream country, the country that he was dreaming all along from his childhood, and he was flying millions of miles in that flight, and that you are looking at him. That's my story. And I'm the first engineering graduate. I'm the engineer in electronics and communication background. I'm the first engineer in my entire county, I would probably say, back in India. And in that entire street, never, ever anyone had any college graduation ever happened. And the engineering never happened. And I was the engineer passed with, in the GPA world, I can probably say close to 4. That's what my story is. And I always tell the people that you got to dream big. You have potential. You got to dream big. If you don't dream big, who's going to dream for you? So that's my story. Yep. So it's been about close to quarter century here in this country. Every time I look around and it's just amazing that that's the path that I came across, and that's my dream.
Tell us about the brass tacks of that, as we would say. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you go to school? Tell us about your family growing up.
Absolutely. So yes, I born in of course, in a southern part of India. It's called Vellore, the state called Tamil Nadu. It's predominantly pretty local language speaking people in that state, and that's where I born. I born with 4 other siblings, and actually I'm one of the twins. My twin brother is still living in India, and I'm the only one in the country in the US. And my elder brother is a railway engineer in Indian Railway, and my sister, she's a housewife. She's an educator, but she's a housewife now. And my twin brother is running some business there. I lost my father in 2001. And my mother she's a retired teacher, and she's 86 years old. So that's my story. And I'm married to a beautiful woman in faith. Her name is Amala. And I have 2 beautiful children. One in college, he's 20 years old, Sachin. He's having that dream, what I used to dream. So now he's actually flying in 20 years. He's still in college, but he's flying. And I always tell him this same story. One time he told me that when I drop him in the airport, he's like, "Dad, do you remember I used to drop you?" And I always tell you that I want to fly. And Dad, I'm in the flight now. I was like, there you go, right? So I have a beautiful son, Sachin. He's doing a dual major with Georgia State, and he wants to run for the office, and that's his political life. And he ran 5 campaigns already. with the different candidates. And then my daughter was a beautiful angel. She's in the 10th grade, and she's also following her brother's footsteps. As my son graduated high school in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And he's doing dual major in college, basically finishing dual major in 4 years. So that's based on my family. And I do have two 4-leg kids, Max and Matt. And I'm a biggest animal lover. I have my birds, 2 parakeets in the house, and 55-gallon aquarium, and a whole lot of birds outside in the backyard.
Wow.
That's me. So I'm an animal lover and love to be with the children and the animals and the nature of the Lord. So that's my background.
That's awesome. Sounds like you got a zoo going on over there.
Yep, we also see some snakes and everything, and fox also.
I bet. That's funny. Now, so you went to college university in India, is that correct?
That is correct. So I graduated in all my education in India. So engineering finished in a graduate in a college in Vellore, local place. That's one of the pretty prestigious university in India. That's well known in US.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I graduated. And in India, the way that here the GPA is the standard, but in India back those days, the first class, second class, third class, and I graduated in the first class with a distinction in the college. So that's where my education is, and this is my country that I dreamed of all along, and this is the country that I'm living right now. I'm a citizen of this great nation.
That's awesome.
All my children. Yep, that's where I settled.
That's great. As you know, in IT and in our work, we've had the great privilege and blessing, I would say, David, of having a number of folks who are originally from another nation work for us as senior consultants like yourself, and place people in direct hire positions. And those stories, those motivations are always fascinating to me. And tell us a little bit about the process for you to come over to America. What was the drive? What was the motivation there?
So, like I said, that was my dream all along, to come to this country. So, right from my probably in the high school, I always find out what it takes to come to this country. And so it's a process. The H1B is what every immigrant would come into this country. So I came into this country with H1B visa and worked for a software development company. And so started my life as a developer in the SAP world. So that's why I started, really. So I was a developer in SAP and doing the codings and things like that. So that's, and after several years, got the green card eligibility, and then apply for the green card, and then waited for another 5 years for the citizenship. And it's been about probably 10 plus years I've been a citizen in this country.
Right.
So my both kids born here, and we are local to Augusta now.
Yes.
And my son born in Illinois, where our great president born. So that's where he is from. My daughter born in Augusta.
Okay.
So we have been living in Augusta for about 17 years now.
Yeah. No, that's a great
That's
community.
the regular. That's the same process as an immigrant, come through the regular channel, and then get to the a company which can sponsor my H1B, and they sponsored it. And then I moved all the way to this level today.
So you and I know each other professionally primarily through your SAP work. So I wanted to double click on that for a second. Help me understand, did you choose SAP and then the company hired you to come to America on an H-1B because of your SAP knowledge, or did you come over and did they train you? How did you get started in SAP?
Good question. So I wasn't really an SAP developer to come over here.
Okay.
And I was a Visual Basic developer and designer.
Right.
And we did a couple of financial software using Visual Basic in India.
Okay.
And so that's how they saw me. And also that when the company interviewed me in India, and they saw my not only the passion to come over, but also they saw that I have the always look at outside of the box, not just looking at the one segment. And that's what attracted them. And so they asked me to go for SAP training, and I got the SAP training and landed into the SAP development. So yeah, that's how I started.
So we were talking to a different guest a little bit earlier in one of these episodes, and one of the things that I called out in his story is that he had proximity. He had a connection to somebody who could help him kind of get started. And what it sounds like is that your great academics, going to a wonderful university in India, kind of was proximity to get you in front of this company, who then started you on the path and helped you go through the training of SAP, which you've kind of stayed through, is a through line throughout your entire career. Is that right?
That is right, but there's one person that I do want to credit for this journey that brought me here. We had, I have close friends, and he's one of my closest to friend. He's still living in India. He didn't get a chance to come over here, but he's the one. His name is Zamir. He's the one who introduced me to this company. So I did not know about the company that I landed in. It's called SmartSoft International. That's the company that I came through. And so he introduced me to the boss of the SmartSoft International. And the boss of that company is pretty excellent person. It's a great company to begin anyone's career. And so he saw my potential. And when he met me in the hotel in India, he saw the potential in me. And so he did not hesitate a bit. He right away started the sponsor process. So I to this day, he's my closest to friend, and he is the one who paved the way for us. And through him, many other friends came over here in this country. So we have a big friends network. They all through the same company. SmartSoft International is the one that paved from Zamir for us.
That's awesome. And how long did you work for SmartSoft?
I want to say about 7 years or 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
So I was one of the senior consultant. Did several things. SAP wasn't the only thing to begin with. Initially, we were on the IBM WebSphere Commerce, one of the software. So then we did a couple of e-commerce sites, and then moved on to the SAP.
Okay.
It's about I was with them all the way to the green card process.
Okay.
Want to be fair and make sure that the company, what they invested, is what they got back from me. So I waited for all the process to be over, and then with this blessing, I left after I got the green card. So
yeah. You strike me as a guy. You said you left with his blessing. You strike me as a guy who does not burn bridges.
One thing that, Barry, I want to tell anyone who's listening this in now, you don't, in this software industry, you do not want to burn the bridges because certain bridges you cannot cross back again, and that's something someone should never think about it. Whether it's a happy ending or negative ending, do not burn the bridges. Because everywhere, somewhere, this is what I always tell, it's a small world. In software industry, it is a small world. One way or other, someone, we will meet the same individual after several years. So do not burn the bridges.
Yeah. You were at SmartSoft. You got to your green card process. What was the motivation? What was the desire for you to take the next position?
I did several projects under the SmartSoft. One of the project is that one of the prestigious project is the state of Pennsylvania, where we implemented SAP. SAP was implemented to state of Pennsylvania for the first time ever in the entire North America. That was the first public sector project for SAP.
Oh, wow.
SAP was never implemented anywhere else. It's always private sector. And state of Pennsylvania was the first one. And I was from SmartSoft for working for IBM. And so that's basically where I started all my connections. And right after that, so I was traveling into Texas for a different project after 3.5 years of a remarkable journey with the state. We went live with 94,000 employees, an outstanding implementation for SAP and IBM. So that created a lot of connections for me, and then I got a project in Texas. So while I was finishing, and Atlanta was my hometown. That's where SmartSoft International is, even to this day. And I was traveling to Texas and coming back, and when the project was coming to end, I got a job offer in Augusta for lead SAP project for a media company.
Okay.
It's called Morris Communication. So back those days, it's still the famous one.
Yeah.
And they had 20 plus newspaper and 20 plus radio stations.
Yeah.
And there were only two media companies in the entire our country that uses the SAP, and Morris was one of them. And so they want someone who have a strong technical and the project management and the integration knowledge. So they were looking for one, and then they found me. And so that's how I got this project. And then at that point, I told Smart South International that I would like to leave, because now I got the green cards a number of years, and I may probably settle in this place.
Sure.
So that's how I got into this path and left the Smart South. And I did have a connection with them, and even we met after I left with the president of the company, and I'm still one of their favorite consultants.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, yep. Morris is a wonderful company, has an amazing reputation around the country.
The best.
Yeah.
Yep, the best.
So you were at Morris for right at 3 years, I think, and then you went to SRA. Is that right?
That is correct. So that's another phenomenal thing. With the Morris, there's one thing that I want to mention. This is where I always tell the people that you have to believe yourself first, right? If you're not believing in you, there's nothing you can achieve. So the reason why I'm saying that, Barry, with the Morris, I wasn't the media person, but I know SAP in and out. So the media was such a challenging one, and SAP media was developed for the North America side of media side. So they didn't know much about our country media, so it wasn't a good fit. A lot of gaps and the challenges. So I end up into there, and then saw a lot of things to be changed. And we had a Siemens as a working partner for us on the project, and I was leading it. And I was working with the media team on the Morris side. Everything was going good, and a pretty challenging project. And there was due to some personal issues and the things of that, the media lead from Morris, who was my partner in the project, he committed suicide. He was one of my best of the best friend. He became so close to us in family, and he's a great Christian family. And we had even a get together and things of it. And suddenly he committed suicide, and we were about 2 months away from the go live. And so much of investment did, and he's just one of my best friend. So the vice presidents and everybody came, and then they were asking this question, because first they thought I'm really impacted with the loss, because he was so close to me. He was very, very close friend, and even to this day I never forget his sweet voice and his family and everybody. And they asked me that if I need counseling or anything and need to postpone the project, we can postpone. But I know for sure that even to postpone for a month, it's going to take a lot of money from the customer, and I didn't want them to go through the suffering. And I did tell them that no, we are going live on the same day.
Wow.
They were like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "No, we have a great team from both sides. We're gonna go live." And we worked so many late nights, and we did go live on the same day.
Wow.
Not even a delay. And so that's where the president of the company flew in from the headquarters and awarded the Employee of the Month award, and they honored me. So that basically opened the door with SRA. That's the reason I was saying that opened the door with SRA, because SRA got the contract with the USDA. It was $500 million project,
right?
SAP implementation with the Department of Agriculture, and USDA did not have SAP system. And we are the one who implemented SAP for them. So I'm blessed that every project that I am part of so far, it's like a monument, it's a crown to my head, that type of thing. So I thank the Lord for that. And that's the project where they got it, and they never had SAP practice. So the company just got the first project, and so I was the employee of SRA.
Wow.
And played several roles, from the developer to the manager to the release manager, change manager, you name it. And I did all kind of roles in that 7 years with them.
That's amazing. I can't imagine. We work a lot with local and state government and higher education, as you know, and have not really done a lot in federal government, but the USDA for a project of that complexity and that magnitude had to be a huge people issue, huge process issue, huge business issue. How big was the team working on the USDA SAP implementation?
Oh, wow. Our project is close to 200 to begin with because it's multiple partners. We had Accenture, our partner, and we have several companies of partnership because it's not just one system. I can simply say this to you, Barry, that anything that our school children eats today, getting the food, and anything that we send to the foreign countries to help them out, any disaster or anything, it's all going through this system that's using SAP.
Right.
And so it's the entire thing, domestic, international, and our project was a mission critical project, and we even had our project showcased in the Congress. The USDA PM went to the Congress, and he was invited to present the project and the achievements of it. His name is Sean Brito, who's one of my favorites. He's now with SAP. He's a senior account manager and senior account executives, and he was the PM. And he saw so many great things that we have done, and he even presented that article to the Congress.
Wow.
So yeah, he became one of my people who recommend me to any project.
Oh.
So that's another project that's 7 years under the contract of SR, and then the next 3 years I moved to CACI because CACI got the contract on the same USDA. So I was moved to SAP, and I was working with SAP for USDA. So it was about 10 years in USDA. That with several roles. Started as a developer. When I left USDA after 10 years from SAP, I was a P1 consultant of SAP, the top tier consultant. I was providing support, and I'm blessed that when the contract was given to CACI, this is what I was told. USDA gave a list to the SAP and CACI that these are the people that they want to retain, and they said my name was the first one. So that much is implementation and the impact that I was blessed to do in that project. 10 years, that's one of my best projects.
That's amazing. I bet that's an amazing project. And from there, after 10 years there, you decided to go to Department of Defense. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's one of my honor project. And I was honored to work with some of the great servicemen of our country and active and retired. And so that's the greatest project. And we implemented SAP. I was working with Telesta as a director there. And I was an employee of Telesta. Telesta is the one which got the project. And I was working closely with our CEO, Soren, who was also one of my mentor. And several leaders. I know you will get to that question, but several leaders became my mentor.
Right.
I was learning from all these leaders all along, and so I was the director from Telesta and led the project as a release manager, change manager, integration manager. You name it, and all kind of roles that I played after 2 years. And after the 2 years, I had to leave the project because of the surgery that I had to go through. But that was another greatest project. So this I would probably say like out of my 25 years of SAP, about 18 years of that it's in the public sector.
Okay. Wow.
That's where all my life came. 10 years with the USDA and 3.5 with the state of Pennsylvania and 2 years with the state of South Carolina and the 2 years with the defense. So majority of them are coming from the public sector.
Do you think being in the public sector, I mean, I know you a little enough to know that you care about things other than work. You're a big family man. You're a big faith guy. And what I find a lot of times, David, is that people who connect with government or some kind of nonprofit organization, which government's a big nonprofit, as you know, they have a mission mindset. Do you think that spoke to you? Or?
that's the greatest question, Barry, that I really appreciate, because this is what I always tell the people, that if a project don't have vision, there's seriously something wrong, right? In every project, if you are going to a project, if you don't know what the mission of the project and the vision of the project team and the company, then seriously something is wrong. And all these projects with the public sector, and especially with the USDA, it's the biggest of the biggest. But the difference is the one where I learn a lot about the perfection and the and also the zero failure approach is what they all, because it's difference. And I blessed to work with some four-star generals, and they always say that this is what he always says, guys, what you do, think about somewhere in the country, in somewhere remote country in the world, our soldiers are looking at the sky and looking, when is that procurement going to come in, when is that the weapon they are looking for is going to come in. That's what you are doing, and you cannot make a mistake, and there is no possibility of failures here. And all we are doing is success to get to that soldier that midnight in nowhere in the world. That's what you are doing it, and that's the type of things that really attracted me a lot. Starting with the USDA, that was really the one that really motivated me to work for all the government organization a lot.
Yeah,
and I'm the company that I'm working with. We have. That's something is great thing here with our NS2. There is a vision and there is a mission statement, what we want to achieve and how we can achieve it and what's the path.
Yeah.
And that really gives anybody to look around, okay, where we are, here is what the company is looking for, how long it's going to take, how I'm going to get to that.
Right.
That basically is what defined the whole thing here.
It's interesting. I connect a lot with what that general said, because I think a lot of times, particularly in technology, David, we get so caught up in the bits and the bytes and the workflow and the stand up and the, what is the burn rate, and we get all that. But at the end of the day, most of the time you're touching systems that support and help thousands, if not millions of people locally, nationally, around the globe. And what we find is that's one of the things that really attracts great talent like yourself to projects like that, because, government, whether it's federal, state, local, higher ed, whatever, it's not a sexy thing. It's not like working for SAP Americas and you got, all the cool stuff. It's not that, right. But it's, man, I want to do something that's bigger than myself and, affect that kid's life, that soldier's life, that single mom's life, whatever the case might be. And we see that every day, and it's really invigorating, but a lot of people who haven't been exposed to that don't stop and think about that. So the opportunity that you've had has been really excellent. Let me ask you, you talked about some of your bosses and some of your influences. Tell us a couple of stories about some of your mentors.
I will probably start with state of Pennsylvania, because I always, blessed with the mentors there. So I was working for IBM, and my manager was Luca Gabrielli. He's an Italian. He's in Italy now. And so one time I was late to a meeting, and I was coming out of another meeting, and that he had another meeting he's scheduled, and it's right after my meeting. So I was running from one conference to other conference room, and everyone was there, client manager, director. And so I'm walking in 2 minutes late,
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes late,
Sure.
right? And he looked at me face to face. He's like, Ganesh. That was my name back then. He's like, Ganesh, what time is it? I was like, 2 minutes past, Luca. He's like, the meeting's supposed to be at 10 o'clock. You are walking 10:02. I'm going to ask you two questions. Do you really have to be in this meeting? Give me answer yes or no. And I said, like, yes. He's like, if you are saying yes, why did you late? Why are you coming late? Are you not thinking that you're not paying attention? You're not giving any value to the customer? And I was like, oh my God. But I really thought that he really offended me, because there was a whole lot of big guys there. But we always walk back to the hotel room on the downtown in Harrisburg. And he was walking back on that evening. He's like, Ganesh, just stay there. I'll be walking out with you. I was like, sure. And I was really upset with them.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was walking, he was giving some stories of some the education of why you have to be very, very consistent and also careful and giving the value to the customer, because they're like, David, isn't it Ganesh? We are not paying. IBM is not paying you. IBM is not paying me. Government is paying us. And for us, they are our boss. And you don't want to disrespect your boss and having them wait for 2 minutes. It's not the right thing. So you always say, like, you need to have practice to come for 5 minutes earlier to any meeting. Or if you're organizing a meeting, start that meeting 5 minutes earlier. That shows how much you show importance and the care for the customer. And that's what you should do. So I really took it, Barry, to this day. If you ask all my friends, I show my meeting. I start my meeting 5 minutes earlier, at least. And I always tell the people that they always like, oh, you're always early. Then I say like, oh, that's because of a one who changed my life 25 years ago.
Right.
So that's my mentor, Luca, where I learned a lot about value the customer. And because at the end of the day, most of the people think that, if I'm working for SAP is paying my paycheck, but it's not really SAP.
That's right.
Who is paying SAP for my job? They are the customer. So that's what he explained to me. 25 years later, it still stick with me. And USDA, several people. I'm afraid that I will probably miss somebody, but I do want to highlight few people there. Bruno. He was my VP in SRA, and he taught me a whole lot of project management and the psychological implement, how you can implement the project in a stronger and without any compromising any value, at the same time more successful and growing the people. And he was my biggest mentor. And he always tell the one thing is like, David, never ever forget or never ever shy away weed in your yard. If there is a weed, you have to treat it. He always says, like in a project team, if you see someone is not doing the right thing and affecting our customer, you have to really fix that issue.
That's
Do
right.
not walk away, because one day the weed will eat the entire yard and you don't want that. So he's my mentor, and he really mentored in a lot of other ways.
Let me ask you this. I've been on some project teams and I've led some project teams, and nothing like what you've done, but I have traveled and stayed with the client for weeks at a time. And, that team connection that you talk about, walking back to the hotel together, and you basically live with these people for weeks, months, maybe years on end. I see a lot of folks who reach a certain level in their career and they wouldn't take the dressing down, the lesson about being 2 minutes late to a meeting. What do you think allowed you to be open to that feedback?
It is what I look at that lesson. That's the lesson made me where I am today, who I am today. It could be a simple 5 minutes lesson that you would have spent, but that made a big change in my life. And he didn't have to do it because he was my manager. He could have simply said that, don't come any more late. That's it, right? You could have said that, or he could have asked me, just leave the room because you're late. I don't want to disturb the meeting. He could have done it, but he did not, and it really took the time to explain to me. And then not only that, at the end of it, and he saw all my performance and everything, he wrote a letter of recommendation with IBM letterhead, and even to this I have it. And so that's what I learned from it. So the leaders are the ones who create the leaders. So in all my life, that everywhere I am, I always try to create the leaders. Several leaders that right now where they are today, we actually, in my leadership, I created them, gave them the position, and helped them to grow. And always, whenever there is an opportunity to explain to them something that they are not doing right, I always take a time to spend and point that to them in a gentle way, and then help them out to grow, because that's what I was given, right? And all these leaders and all these people, great people that I mentioned, they spend their time, which is why I am today, and I'm able to grow, mentor my son. And right now in my project, there are several people that they really, I'm thanking God that even my team members, they look up to me, and I do mentor them, because I always tell them that you can be a leader one day, But if you grow into all these things, because life is all improvements, and continuous improvement is something that we should never forget.
Right.
Nobody is perfect, but we can grow into that perfection as long as I admit that. This is what my brother always tell Barry, that if you ask my son, he would say the same. If you ask my daughter, she would do the same thing. He always says that unless you admit that you need to grow, you will never grow.
Ooh.
And that's what my brother said that all the time. He was like a military type of thing that he raised me. But that's what made me today. So I always tell my kids the same exact thing. So if you ask my kids, what is the one thing that your dad always tell you? They without a second, they will say, oh, this is exactly what he always says. I always tell the people, you want to grow, then you need to admit that you need to grow. Because no one is perfect. No one born as the perfect leaders. We grow into it. So if someone is pointing out to us, that's something that we need to grow.
Yeah.
So that's how, to this day, that I never stopped that. I never stopped learning from anybody, whether it's my team member or low level, higher level. As long as there is something that they want to help me out, I do want to look at that and then grow into it.
That's a great axiom for your kids, and I'm sure they'll tell their kids and all the folks that you work with. So, one of my favorite words, which I'm going to ask you your favorite word in a little bit, but one of my favorite words is the word progression, going from here to there. And it just eats me up inside. Part of the reason we love what we do is because we love to see people go from one spot, whether that's a consultant or a hiring manager or a team that's in disarray, and go to somewhere else. We love to see that movement. So I appreciate that. You're the delivery manager today at Norfolk Southern, based in Atlanta.
Correct.
You've had a lot of great success. You had a wildly successful career to this point. You've moved and become a U.S. citizen from India, which is one of the countries I want to go to, by the way. The view from here, what's your areas of focus going forward? What are your goals going forward, David?
So my goal is that I want to go into an integrated environment, not just on one small setup. And I want to look at the holistic approach of a company, of a software company. It can be a software company or a manufacturing company. Anything, I want to look at that at the integration level. Mm-hmm. Think outside of the box and then integrate that, because you can have an efficient process in every area, but if they are not integrated, you're not going to get the best out of it. So that's what I want to be looking at it. And also that in any software industry, being a software industry person, I want to grow into a place where that basically we integrate that the sales after service and to the implementation success. Because I have seen areas where it can be improved and where it can be successful. And so that's the area that I want to look into it, further grow into my career. And where I am right now, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm looking at overall like lots of projects level, and it's not just simply in one area of delivery, but it's delivery of many projects in an integrated fashion, and integrating the systems together and bring the best out of each system and integrate that so you have one source and efficient way of getting into the corporate hand. So that's where basically I'm looking.
Tell us a little bit about your role currently at Norfolk Southern in conjunction with that. Give us some sense of kind of what are your areas of focus there. What are some of your responsibilities? And give us some sense of where the company is.
The vision of the team where I am right now is the quality center of excellence. So this is establishing the quality in our company in NS. And not only the part of that is also automating the testing within the NS. So there is a tool that the vendor is a Tricentis, and company invested a lot of money into it. So the company vision is that basically to automate every project testing into the automation way using these tools. Okay. So that's basically the high level. At the same time, and also that the testing should have an efficient testing methodology and the quality standards, if you will, and the best practices across the board, across the project teams. So these are all some of the high level is what I have to, what my responsibilities are. So there is about a couple of projects that I'm working on, and it's all bringing them into this automation industry with the quality enforced and quality continuously improved with the ITIL enforcement across the board. So it's like I said, it's like quality management plan establishment of it, and how you are testing it, how you are validating it, and how you are making sure the checks and balances are built, and up to a point where you're delivering something with the minimal to no defects into the production system, so customers will not have any impact, because this is a train industry. Any defects obviously can impact the train operation and things related to that. So that's where we are heading, and so that's where I am basically architecting the whole the quality standards of the company, and establishing all this plan, quality management and test management, and this best practices for the automation and all. Now I'm working on a project. It's actually pretty interesting, integrating the service now to the Salesforce to the Jira. So that will be one system, one system of information. So that's type of thing is what I'm doing.
Okay.
Integrating the entire company, bringing the best from every project, every system into a one common tool. They can go through it. So that's one of the things that I'm doing right now.
And I have to imagine that that's a huge project, because Norfolk Southern is a huge enterprise. I mean, it's a globally known, recognized brand with thousands and thousands of employees and devices and pieces of equipment. And I can't imagine the complexity that something like that would have. But it sounds like you're bailiwick. You like big, hairy, crazy, scary projects, don't you?
It is.
Well, let me ask you. I know that you have a life outside of work. You've alluded to it a couple of times, so I want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit, David, as we kind of close up here. So, am I right in that you've written a children's book? Am I correct on that?
I'm writing the parenting book. It's almost done.
Okay, tell us about that a little bit.
So this is about 7 years ago. In our previous church, it's my home church, when they asked me to teach parenting to the church. And that's where I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about, because I was only like young in parenting. There are lots of senior parents than me. But the director, who's Jenny Roberts, she's pretty close to me. And she's like, no, I have a lots leading for you to do this. And so when I went to the Lord, and I was like, Lord, I have no idea what they're talking about. It's not just taking a few scriptures to explain to people, because they already know what it is. Mm-hmm. But the Lord gave me a vision of a tree, and he said, this is what I'm going to take you. I was like, this is about parenting, not planting. He said, that's what I'm going to take you. Parenting is nothing but planting a tree. It takes a lot of effort to prepare the ground, prepare ourselves, right? As a parents, it's not really much with the kid. How much I'm as a good parent, I can teach myself, so I can raise my kids in the right way. So that's how he walked me. It's about 2 years plus in the previous church, and I did it, and that's what triggered me to write this book. And now in the church where we are planted at this time, I'm doing the same parenting class. The book is almost done.
Okay.
So parenting is planting a tree. So that's what this book is about.
How cool is that? Well, talk to me. You've mentioned your family a couple of times. I'm sure you're very connected with your nuclear family, as we say in the U.S., your wife and your 2 kids, and you've talked about them and their great successes. Your family in India, I'm sure you're very close to, and then you have an auxiliary family of folks that you work with. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So my wife, like I said, she's a beautiful woman of faith. Her name is Amula. She was a nurse in India, bigger hospital for 11 years. And when we married, we actually, our marriage is a love marriage. I was dating her about 6.5 years to get the permission from my family. Waited for 6.5 years to get married. When we married and decided to have kids, and our decision was that one of us will not work if we are going to have kids. And she made the decision to sacrifice her career for the kids. So she's a housewife. That's how our kids are raised, because I was traveling all over all the time.
Sure.
So she raised, and she's having her own prayer ministry, and she has a full-time ministry at that too. And like I said, the two kids, Sachin and Monisha. Sachin is like I said, he wants to run for the office. He has a strong vision for our country, and he did 5 campaign already. He ran a campaigns for 5 different level of people, district commissioner all the way to the federal House of Representative election,
Oh, wow.
including a governor election to the Georgia. So he did all those things. So he's running into that. My son is a guitarist, which I tried to learn. I could not learn. And my daughter is a singer, beautiful singer.
Oh, wow.
She can bring down the heaven when she sings. So that's her name is Monisha. My son name is Sachin.
Awesome.
I was a cricket player in India. So Sachin Tendulkar was the biggest cricketer, and I named my son after him.
Oh, very good.
So Sachin, that's his name.
That's awesome.
And so my life is really the church and the ministry and the family and the Lord. The Lord is the first, and then the ministry, and then the family and the job. So that's my four priorities that I always have.
That's awesome.
First in the Lord, and then the ministry.
That's great. It's very clear in talking to you, even prior to today's interview, that you are very focused on giving back. So I want to know kind of, where does that come from the little boy in India looking up at the plane and saying, one day I'll be on the plane, to where you are now. Tell us kind of not only the philosophy you have about giving back, but the action steps that you take in giving back.
All along my life, that someone always played a role in my life and did something to me, which is where I am today, with all the folks that I mentioned. From my childhood itself, that when I wanted to be an engineer, I got the order from the confirmation from the college that I'm selected to join the engineering college. And coming from the poor family, from the background back those days, we didn't even have the money to pay for the fee that they were asking. So very, very, very minimal even in those days, but we were not fortunate enough to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember that my mom wrote a letter to one of our family well-wisher, and I took that letter to his house, and he told me, he looked at my eyes after reading the letter. He's like, "Don't worry, I got you. You come to the college, I will pay for the fee." Even there, also my life is always contributed by somebody outside of our family, which is what basically contributed in my life. That you don't want to be a selfish.
Right.
Do something back to the country that is feeding you, giving you the shelter, and give back something to the community where you're part of it, and your neighbors, and even to the strangers. So that's where my life is.
That's awesome. I grew up pretty poor too, and I was able to go to college because my grandfather and grandmother paid for it, and so
Gotcha.
I have a connection to that kind of thing, because there's no way we would have been able to do that. So, all right, let me ask you. We have this lightning round. I didn't prepare you for these questions, and they're pretty simple. What is something, when you were a mid to young career professional, that you overvalued from a career perspective, that as you have grown into the person and the professional that you are today is not as important as you thought it might be when you were 25 or 30 or 35 years old?
In the USDA project, that's one first project that one of the roles that suddenly asked me to play as a release manager.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the manager and worked in that capacity, all of a sudden was thrown into that release manager. And I really thought that I was overvalued for that, because I did not have that much of background of a release manager or anything back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really thought that I was overvalued position. But later on, I realized that it wasn't really about the qualification, but it was the trust that the company had, where they saw that I can work through it. I can make the things I have the learning curve is what they really told me at later point is what they attracted them to give me that position. So that's one thing that I still never forget that, because I thought for a second that, wow, that's bigger. But later on I understood that's what they made the decision.
When you were a young career professional in the U.S. What did you undervalue? What did you think was less important when you were young that is highly important now?
The less important in my, at some point back those time, is that the family life. I did not really put a much effort on it because I used to work like 14, 15 hours solid every day. And so even my family to talk to me is like they have to keep on popping up on my room and then walk away, that type of things. And I did not see that as such a value because I was like, this is career. But now I see that, oh my God, that is not the right thing to do.
Right.
You have to have the family background, family build and the foundation. So that's something that I realized.
Other than your current job that you have today, what is a job or a career, David, that you would love to try?
Yes, I want to be in the full-time ministry.
Okay.
So for the Lord, so that's what I'm planning for, and also do some mentorship for the young people.
Awesome.
Yeah, who has the inspiration or aspire to become the bigger one. Those type of people that I want to mentor to them.
Very good. And what is a job or a career other than your own that you would never want to try?
Oh, that's a good question. Definitely not the CEO. I don't want to be a CEO of a company. That's too much. Anything below that is okay, but not the CEO.
I understand. All right, our last two questions. What is your favorite word?
When it comes down to the professional career, this is what I always want to tell the people, that anything that you do in a company, in a project, or wherever it is, always 4 things important: people, process, control, top-down management approach. Always think about who you are doing this project for, and that's the people. And think about what they are doing today. Never discount what they are having a process today. Never put the word that, the process is not right. Do not say that. Try to understand why they are doing it. And then bring your process, what the efficient process, explain to them, educate them, and then make it efficient, and then bring the quality into it and control the quality. In all these things, never try to do anything without the top-down management approach. The management should bless you in order to move down. If the management is not having a vision, do not try anything starting with the people level. Okay. So that's the 4 things I always say: people, process, control, top-down approach.
Okay. What is your least favorite word, David?
Failure. Because even in a failure, people always can look at, and there's always something that you did success. So that's how I always tell my son that it's okay to fail, but fail big. Try and fail big. It's okay because you tried. It's not the bad thing. But yeah, failure, I totally failed. That's the part that is the word that I know I don't want to hear. Because everyone has a potential to do something in their level.
Well, David Jayaramen, thank you for being on our podcast, Tech Leaders Talk. It was a great pleasure for us to have you and listen to you and gain from your understanding and your wide experience. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for us.
My pleasure there. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much again for all your questions, and glad to be connected again here on this network.
Thanks for joining us today on the Tech Leaders Talk podcast. Learn more about our show at techleaderstalkpodcast.com and follow us on social media. We are Tech Leaders Talk Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter at Tech Leaders Pod. Subscribe to our show wherever you get podcasts, and please share this episode with at least one person in your life who would benefit. Until next time, Tech Leaders, keep talking.